A man who prepares a drink for you without probing too deeply possesses a certain charm that is hard to resist. Who can truly grasp the precise amount of ice to incorporate, the deliberate pace at which to stir, the careful way to press the citrus rind with a sense of honor rather than habit. Such a man is perilous, not due to his assertiveness, but because he possesses the rare ability to listen without the necessity of instruction. Liam was the man in question. The moment I first encountered him, my wedding ring adorned my finger. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Rachel. I have reached the age of 52. My residence is nestled in a suburb just beyond the vibrant city of Charlotte. I share my life with a husband and 2 grown children, and my closet is filled with dresses that have remained untouched since our last family Christmas card. There is a bar downtown that I hold in high regard. Its unpretentious, dark wood subdued lighting, the soft murmur of jazz in the air, and cozy booths that invite you to retreat. After my book club meetings wrapped up ahead of schedule, I began visiting that place. Perhaps I began to depart early with intention. On that particular night, solitude enveloped me. I found myself seated at the bar. Not seated at a table. Unconcealed. Merely existing. He was a newcomer. I had never laid eyes on him before. Old-fashioned, I declared. He inclined his head in acknowledgement.
No embellishment.
Merely a serene form of awareness. It was as if he had already envisioned the drink I would request, and this moment merely validated his anticipation. You're not from around here, I remarked as he set the glass before me. No, yet I often discover locations such as this. They ensure my integrity. A smile graced my lips. You're too young to require truthfulness. He gave a slight shrug. Perhaps I have merely witnessed the consequences that unfold when individuals cease to embrace honesty. I lifted the glass to my lips and took a sip. He maintained his gaze. What brings you here this evening? He inquired. Silence, I declared. In that case, I shall remain silent. Yet he was not. Not entirely. He inquired about my well-being once, then a second time. I nudged a napkin nearer as a drop of whiskey escaped and landed on the bar. They provided a glass of water when I requested a second drink. Just as I was about to finish my drink, he inquired, with that unsettling tranquility of someone who was already aware of the response. Is it true that you are married? It lacked any hint of flirtation. It lacked any hint of accusation. The atmosphere was profoundly personal. My throat constricted. My gaze fell upon him. He remained steadfast. Pardon me, proclaimed. He chose not to reiterate it. Simply bided my time. I reached for my ring. The burden seemed to grow more substantial beneath his watchful eyes. I am, I replied. But do you truly mean it? And I chose not to respond on that occasion. In that instant it dawned on me that I was utterly unaware. What does it truly mean to be married? To don the ring, yet remain unnoticed? To return home, prepare the evening meal, inquire about your husband's day, smile at the right moments, yet remain entirely unaffected? That evening, I returned home and lingered in my car for 20 minutes before finally stepping inside. My husband lay peacefully asleep on the couch. The television continued to flicker. A half-empty beer can rested beside him. I switched it off. She draped the throw blanket over him gently. Ascended the staircase. I gazed into the mirror, examining my reflection. The lipstick has worn away. Weary eyes. Yet, lurking just below the surface, a change had occurred. A question had been posed by the bartender. For the first time in years, I found myself utterly at a loss for the answer. Seeing him again was never part of my intentions. Yet Tuesday arrived, bringing with it the familiar cadence, the serene breakfast, the meticulous folding of laundry, the emails lingering in silence. By 4 o'clock, I found myself with half a glass of wine in hand, gazing into its depths as if it held the key to answering Liam's question. Is it true that you are married? It reverberated. Quiet. Merely existing in the moment. A subtle resonance deep within my chest. By 6, I found myself navigating the familiar streets of downtown once more. The bar was filled to a modest capacity. Recognizable figures linger at the familiar intersections. The jazz that evening was gentler, a languid rhythm unfurling like a deep, contented breath. He noticed me before I had the chance to settle into my seat. No smile graced their lips. Merely a nod, as if he had anticipated my presence. "The same?" he inquired. "Astonish me," I declared. This time he presented me with a boulevardier. More resilient. More audacious. Greater transparency. I took a sip. "Allow the searing sensation to envelop my throat." "Having a tough day?" he inquired. "Merely cacophonous." Within these confines, I wrapped my fingers against my temple. He rested against the bar, arms crossed in contemplation. "I never intended for that to happen." "I never claimed you did." We lingered in a bubble of silence, its tension palpable and unsettling. "So," he finally remarked, "what of it? Have you come to a conclusion yet?" My gaze fell upon him. "You pose numerous inquiries. Merely the individuals that the majority tend to steer clear of." That brought a smile to my face. A brief acrid note. "I do not shy away from them. I simply inter them." He regarded me then, not merely as the bartender, but as a man who had glimpsed the hidden truths I was unaware I had revealed. "You immerse yourself in quietude, Rachel. Yet you don't seem like the type of woman destined to fade away." I maintained his gaze. "Perhaps I've simply lost the ability to be noticed." Silence enveloped us in the aftermath. I lingered for an additional hour, savoring each sip, prolonging the experience. As I rose to depart, he accompanied me to the far end of the bar. "Please come in on Thursday," he said. "I toil through the late hours. It is quieter then." I ought to have declined. I ought to have offered a courteous smile, taken my leave and never looked back. Yet I refrained. I simply replied, "Okay." That evening, I chose not to remain in my car. I stepped directly into the house. My husband was engrossed in reruns. He raised his gaze. "Hello. I didn't anticipate your arrival would be so delayed." "I lost track of time," I remarked. He made no inquiry about my whereabouts. Failed to rise. The show continued without interruption. It dawned on me. He hadn't met my gaze in days. Perhaps an extended duration. As I ascended the stairs, I slipped off my ring. Only for a fleeting instant. Not due to any sense of shame. Yet, I was curious to observe the appearance of my hand devoid of it. And the peculiar aspect was, it appeared more akin to my own. Thursday arrived with an unsettling quiver. It wasn't precisely nerves. More akin to static. The stillness that lingers just before the storm unleashes its fury. I devoted the day to persuading myself against the idea of going. Yet I did. As I stepped inside, I found the bar almost deserted. Only two older gentlemen cradling their beers in the distant booth, while a young couple huddles together in the dim light of the shadows. Liam stood behind the bar, his sleeves rolled up, meticulously polishing a glass that was already spotless. He caught sight of me. On this occasion, a smile graced his lips. "You have arrived. You mentioned it would be peaceful." "Indeed it is." I settled into my seat. Without a word, he set a drink before me, anticipating my desire before it even crossed my mind. What could it possibly be? A French 75. Delicate, fragrant. Yet it strikes with a depth that belies its appearance. A sly smile crept across my face. "So, is that what you mean?" His gaze remained fixed on me. "Precisely as you are." I took a sip. The effervescent bubbles danced playfully against the back of my throat. It was exquisite, the beverage, the instant, the manner in which the universe appeared to quieten around us. We engaged in conversation. This occasion calls for an extended duration. He mentioned that he hailed from Asheville. His mother owned a bakery, and he would often sneak chocolate croissants before heading off to school. That bartending wasn't the aspiration, merely the means through which he financed his poetry degree. Indeed, verse. I mentioned to him that I once dabbled in the art of writing. In the days preceding the arrival of the children. Long before I took on the roles of a wife, a mother, and a mere backdrop in the lives of others. "Do you long for it?" he inquired. "Indeed. Yet, I find myself longing for the version of me that existed when my pen danced across the page more frequently." He inclined his head in acknowledgement. "That is the crux of the matter. It is always more than the mere object at hand. It speaks to the essence of our past selves during the times we embraced love. The clock nestled behind the bar advanced past the hour of 10. The couple had departed. The two elder gentlemen departed. Only we remained. I traced my finger along the edge of the glass. Is this how you typically engage with your customers? He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the polished wood. No, only those who allow me to lose sight of my tasks. The stillness that enveloped us grew denser, transformed into an experience you could immerse yourself in. Could you walk me out? I inquired. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. The parking lot lay shrouded in shadows. A solitary light danced in the air above us. I approached my car and turned to face him. I appreciate the drink. He remained silent. I ought to have walked away. One ought to have opened the door, driven home, and laid the night to rest as if it were merely a fleeting dream. Instead, I inquired, what prompted you to ask me that the very first time? Concerning my union? He advanced with measured intent.
Non intrusive.
Not assertive. Very well then. For you did not appear to be a woman enveloped in love. The word struck with an unexpected intensity. I gulped. What comes next? I inquired. He gazed at me for an extended moment. At this moment you are aware. Simply not by the one you return to. Then with a deliberate slowness, tinged with uncertainty yet unmistakable, he lifted his hand and brushed the side of my face. I allowed him to continue. He refrained from kissing me. Not at this moment. Yet, in that instant all signs pointed to its inevitability. It was merely a question of timing. The following morning the flavor of my coffee eluded me. I moved through the routine shower, hair, makeup, grocery list. Yet my mind lingered in another realm. Remaining in the parking lot. The lingering warmth of his fingers rests upon my cheek. I kept it to myself. Not even the image that stares back at me. During dinner, my husband inquired about the events of my day. I remarked, uneventful. He nodded and continued to eat. My gaze lingered on his hands. They once reached out to me with purpose. In awe, they now merely clutched their utensils, flicked through TV channels and scrolled through emails. As the night deepened, I found my way back to the bar. It was not intentional. Or perhaps it was all by design. Liam raised his gaze as I stepped inside. He meticulously polished the far end of the counter. Silence enveloped the moment. A gaze exchanged that conveyed all that needed to be expressed. I took a seat. He filled a glass with wine for me unbidden. It was unlike the other nights. The air was devoid of casual chatter. There is no jazz music playing in the background. The gentle murmur of the cooler mingles with the soft, melodic chime of glass meeting wood. He inclined his body over the polished surface of the bar. Have you returned in search of understanding? Our gazes locked. No. I returned, for clarity alone could not suffice. It was the inaugural moment he extended his hand toward mine. Not my visage. Not a single touch upon the arm. My hand. Steadfast. Undoubtedly. And I allowed it to happen. His thumb glided over my palm, as if he were attempting to etch its contours into his memory. Rachel, he murmured, as though the mere utterance of my name could fracture reality itself. He circled the bar, and I rose to my feet. Time seemed to stretch, unhurried and calm. There existed no allure. Only gravity. We strolled into the back office, gliding by the staff fridge and the cleaning checklist that hung on the wall. The door clicked shut behind us. Not a single word escaped his lips. I did not either. The stillness served as a pact. The memory of the first button he unfastened lingers in my mind. The sound of my breath halting. His hands trembled ever so slightly, a subtle contrast to the unwavering confidence he exuded while tending the bar. I recall the sensation of my wedding ring, its coolness brushing against my skin as I tucked it away into the depths of my coat pocket. And I recall pondering, this isn't a matter of treachery. This pertains to the experience of consciousness. His lips met mine as if they had been on a quest for an eternity. In that room, guilt was a stranger. Merely authorization. Simply let go. And when it was over, when we lay there in the stillness, our garments strewn about like forgotten fragments of who we once were, I didn't shed a tear. I took my time getting dressed. I gazed at him and uttered, I'm uncertain about what comes next. He offered a gentle smile. I don't either. Yet for once that doesn't fill me with fear. The night had thickened beyond the horizon. Within me a stirring had begun, not desire, not insurrection, yet acknowledgement. I had existed as a wife to one, a mother to another, a mere shadow in the lives of those around me. This evening I found myself as the starting point for someone else. The following morning I chose not to revisit the bar. I refrained from sending him a message, did not pass by. I meticulously folded the towels. I tended to the plants with water. I found myself seated opposite my husband, sharing the news of an upcoming birthday celebration for a friend I hadn't crossed paths with in quite some time. He nodded, his mind elsewhere. Yet within I sensed a crescendo. I have resumed my journaling practice. Not to reveal but to reflect. I described how Liam's hand shook, the precise shade of light in the back office, the way he uttered my name as if it held significance. That weekend I took a leisurely stroll. Isolated. Without a destination. Only the rhythm of my footsteps on the pavement and the cadence of my breath fill the air. I came to a profound realization. I was not going to leave my husband. I had no intention of embarking on a second life. Yet, I had already departed from a version of myself that no longer resonated. On the following Thursday, I stepped into the bar once more. He was absent. A different bartender offered a courteous smile and inquired about my order. Is Liam on duty this evening? I inquired nonchalantly, attempting to convey an air of spontaneity as if the words hadn't been meticulously crafted in my mind. The man shook his head. He departed. Spoke of a journey toward the west. A poetry residency or perhaps something akin to it. There was no number left behind. In an instant he vanished. And I did not sense abandonment. A sense of being selected washed over me, as if the universe had bestowed upon me a mirror, softly urging, now create something from what you have glimpsed. Time slipped by week after week. Then came the months. I enrolled in a ceramics class. I embarked on a solo journey to Savannah for a weekend getaway. I acquired a lipstick that clashed with everything in my collection, simply because it stirred a sense of mischief within me. Occasionally, I would return to the bar, settling into that familiar seat, and ordering a drink I had yet to experience. At that moment, clarity washed over me. I had discovered my preferences. It did not meet my expectations. Not what was secure. Times he crosses my mind. Not with desire. Without a trace of regret. Yet with a sense of appreciation. Liam did not shatter the bonds of my marriage. He shattered the stillness within me. He was merely the bartender. Yet, he possessed the uncanny ability to pose the singular question that others would never even consider. Is it true that you're married? Now as I gaze into the mirror, lips painted with confidence, eyes unwavering, I can finally respond. I am truly myself. Everything else is merely adornment.